Lesson 2. Communication. Hi friends, welcome back to Lesson 2 of this Mind Cups audio course on Listenable, brought to you by Quincy, Washington Productions. The two words information and communication are often used interchangeably, but they signify quite different things. Information is giving out. Communication is getting through. And as fancy as this sounds, don't just take it from us, because these famous words were in fact spoken way back in the 1940s by Sidney J. Harris, a journalist for the Chicago Sun-Times. Mr. Harris was known for his many memorable quotes about the modern world and human behavior, but this quote really stands out, and for good reason. When you try to communicate with someone, especially during some kind of confrontation or argument, actually getting your message heard is more important than just launching a verbal tsunami on your listener. And with this gem of wisdom in mind, how about we get right into the 5 things you should avoid doing if you want to keep your communication skills top notch. Number 1. Yelling. You may think that you're leveling a mighty blow to the other person by yelling, but the only thing that's taking a mighty blow is your dignity and your self-respect. And if that doesn't persuade you, then just Google what 2 elephant seals look like when they're fighting. Yep, that's sadly what you look like when you're in a yelling match with someone. That's never a good look. American author L.J. Smith was really onto something when she posed the question, why do people always assume that volume will succeed when logic won't? Raising your voice during an argument serves no other purpose than convincing the other person that your words alone don't carry enough value to make your point coherently. Worse still, the moment that you start shouting, you signal to the other person that the argument has now entered a new dimension where your goal is to intimidate and make the other person feel threatened. And so you shouldn't be gobsmacked if the other person tries to outdo you by raising the volume of their own voice to match yours. Before you know it, the two of you are at each other's throats, figuratively speaking, but if you carry on and if you've had one too many drinks one night, you might be literally at each other's throats. So just go ahead and stop while you can. You're better than that. Stay cool, stay calm, stay collected. Number 2. Bottling it all up. Ooh, this is a big one, so listen up. Here's a quick story for you. A married couple was standing in the bathroom looking in the mirror getting ready for work. The husband looked at his wife contemplatively and said, "Good grief, did I say you're getting wrinklier by the week? Yet every time that I mention that you're getting another wrinkle, you never react. How do you manage your anger?" The wife said,
"Well, I do have my coping mechanisms, one of which is that I just go downstairs to clean the dog. I've been doing it for so many years now. In fact, I've rather gotten used to it."
The husband responded,
"Ah, yes, I have indeed noticed that. That is why our marriage is so harmonious. I get to call you whatever on earth I want, and whatever my mind can conjure, and the dog gets so good old clean each time. Sounds like a win-win in my book, so do carry on. In fact, I've just spotted another wrinkle this morning, so you might as well clean the dog now. She's been rolling in the mud all week with the kids, so make sure you give her a good scrub while I'm at work."
The wife simply said,
"I couldn't agree more,"
leaving the bathroom quietly. The husband, rinsing toothpaste from his mouth and spitting it out into the sink, shouted to his wife,
"Out of curiosity, how does cleaning the dog actually help you, darling?"
The wife returned to the bathroom with a muddy, panting dog hot on her heels and said,
"I use your toothbrush to do it, darling,"
and snatched the toothbrush straight out of her mortified husband's hands as she left the bathroom with a very excited dog looking forward to its weekly scrub, wagging its tail. Wow. Well, that filthy mutt deserved it, right? And yes, we're talking about the husband in this story. Now, you don't need to go as far as the wife did in this story, so let your feelings out. After all, what goes in is going to come out. Somehow, some way, somewhere, and someday. And the person who you have a problem with is going to get a big shock when that day comes. So quit hoarding all your grievances and quit saving your rage for the right time to unload it all in bulk. Obviously, you're not going to bring up how upset you are about your husband's smelly socks while at the barbecue with the neighbors. There is a time and a place, but just remember to not let your issues fester in your mind forever. Here's a little jingle to remember. Let it out, let them know, help them out, help them grow. Don't leave your husband wondering why there's dog hair stuck between his teeth every Thursday before work. A word to the wise is enough. Number 3. Using curse words. Slippery dick, cockchafer, lumpsucker. You'd be forgiven for thinking these are curses or insults, but they are, in fact, species of fish and insects. Crazy, right? Unless you're one of Ned Flanders' kids from The Simpsons, you've most definitely said a fair amount of 4-letter words in your time. And that's okay. It'd be a bit weird if you hadn't. However, during an argument when you curse, just bear in mind that it rarely achieves the impact you might think it would have. If you're a grown adult, then cursing as a means of making a point can make you look like a 12-year-old who thinks they'll look tough by swearing when their parents aren't watching. So sad, right? Swearing doesn't make you tough or cool, especially in arguments. So if your argument is failing, don't go reaching desperately for a curse word to save your butt, because it won't. If when you were a kid, you stayed up at night dreaming of looking like a loud-mouthed, yobbish fool as an adult, then constantly dropping those 4-letter bombs when you unload on people is a tactic that will surely get you there in no time. However, if you want your words to actually mean something, you don't need to bother with curse words, because the substance of your valid points and how you deliver them will carry so much more weight than anything else. So be mature and remember that your words carry weight. So be smart about them and choose words that convey your point clearly without being offensive. Oh, and in the interest of slippery dicks, cockchafers, and lumpsuckers, have a listen to 10 more of these beauties before we continue on to number 4 in this list. We just couldn't resist. Scientists clearly had a generous sense of humor when choosing the names of these wonderful creatures in our animal kingdom, and we're all for it, so here we go. Sarcastic fringehead, Tertus maximus, fluffy-backed tit babbler, yellow-bellied sapsucker, sparkle muffin, common loon, hellbender, strange-tailed tyrant, smew, and last but not least, colon rectum, which is a beetle. Okay, that was fun. On to the next point. Number 4, not being mindful about what your body language communicates. Pointing, turning your body away, getting too close to someone while speaking. Don't be fooled. Each of these small actions represents a powerful way that you communicate to another person in ways that can't be conveyed through speech alone. Pointing can be perceived to be rude. Turning your body away suggests a disregard for what the other person has to say. Getting too close to someone while speaking can be intimidating and too confrontational for certain people. Psychology Today reports that when you speak, what you communicate is 7% words, 38% voice and tone, and 55% body language. We're not sure where or how they calculated those figures, but they sure sound believable, don't they? And notwithstanding the figures, it makes sense that we communicate in more ways than one. Watch yourself and pay attention to how you present yourself to other people. But obviously don't get obsessed with it, because you'd go crazy if you were fixated on every little body movement and facial expression and become a robot. But please remember that just because you aren't saying anything bad doesn't mean you aren't making the other person feel uncomfortable or unwelcome to engage in conversation with you. It's the little things that can go a long way. How you make people feel carries as much weight as what you actually say. Number 5, using absolute hyperbolic statements.
You never clean anything. You're always so selfish. You're the worst boyfriend I've ever had.
You do everything wrong. I hate the sound of your voice. You do nothing to help around the house. Never. Always. Worst. Everything. Hate. Nothing. Pay attention to those words. They are strong. They are powerful. And they can kill. The problem with hyperbolic statements and throwing absolute words into the mix during an argument is that very rarely will you ever be right, and you run the risk of causing some serious and long-term harm to people. Quoting the great Stephen Covey, "We tend to judge ourselves by our intentions and other people by their actions." And so, if you really don't mean it, then why let those toxic words leave your mouth? If the future version of you tomorrow, once you've calmed down and everything has all blown over, wouldn't stand by those words, then why say them? And even if you do mean what you say, why not be mindful about how you communicate it to people? After all, tracking back to Sidney J. Harris's famous words at the beginning of this lesson, there's a difference between information and communication. Just because you've said it doesn't mean it's gotten through. And worse still, even if your message does get through, it can get through in the completely wrong way, and with devastating consequences that can linger on for years and years. If you want a real-life example, then listen up. Carol is a middle-aged single parent with a 10-year-old daughter, Lucy. Lucy tells her mom that she has started playing tennis at school. Carol is over the moon about this since Lucy is a bit shy and has rarely expressed interest in getting involved in any kind of extracurricular activities. In fact, Lucy has never been this excited about anything. Carol tries to get Lucy to sign up for an after-school club because she wants her to get more involved in what she sees as an emerging hobby. Lucy happily attends each week for a month, but then her mom, Carol, starts to take control and makes what was once a fun activity into a chore that Lucy starts to lose the love for. One day, after 2 months, Lucy's PE teacher phones Carol at work to tell her that Lucy doesn't attend tennis club anymore. Feeling disappointed and upset coming back from work, Carol summons her daughter to the sitting room and, without giving her time to explain, shouts at her, "You never stay dedicated to anything you say you'll do." Lucy's really upset and bursts into tears. She feels attacked. She wants to explain herself, but her mom doesn't even give her the chance. The argument continues for another 15 minutes, but then, by some miracle, it inevitably resolves itself, as arguments often do. Carol goes to bed, and that argument is now forgotten about. 10 years later, Lucy is now in late adolescence, and she's thinking about applying to study a rigorous course at an excellent university. Carol fully supports her, but for reasons unknown to her, her daughter carries a sense of trepidation and apprehensiveness about embarking on something new. She doubts herself constantly. It's hard to pinpoint exactly where it all started, but Lucy questions how dedicated she'll be anytime she gains interest in something new or exciting. What's very likely to have happened to Carol's daughter is exactly what illustrates the sheer power of using absolute terms in hyperbolic statements and arguments. Because even though the argument about tennis club is now around a decade ago, those comments stayed with Lucy throughout her adolescence, and now it is only with great difficulty that she could somehow muster up the confidence and that youthful excitement to believe in herself again. Those words spoken to her as a child became a life sentence, making her still see herself as someone who never stays dedicated to anything that she says she'll do, just like her mom told her. By using a hyperbolic word such as never, it defined Lucy's character in a way that, sadly, became enmeshed into her personal identity and how she sees herself even as an adult. Carol didn't mean for this to happen, but it did. The way to alter your language here is to only gently critique, advise, or remark on the actions and individual choices that people make, if that, and not assign people with labels that are hard to shake off. Be gentle, be considerate, and avoid absolutes and hyperbolic language. That's all for this lesson. In the next lesson, we'll explore the ways that your mindset can affect how you argue especially when your perspective needs a bit of a shake-up. If you're ready, then let's continue to the next lesson.